The Praetorian Guard, Chapter 10, A New Mission. A few days had passed since Joan's night out with Kara, and the weight of his double life hung heavier than ever. He had spent the days lost in thought, wondering if he had made a mistake reconnecting with her. The more he allowed himself to get close, the more he felt trapped by the lies he had to tell. His life with the shadows of the night demanded secrecy, and getting too close to anyone, especially someone like Kara, was a dangerous game. But before he could dwell on it further, a message came through from Sarah, summoning him to her office. It was time for another mission. The call was expected. John knew that downtime in the shadows was always short-lived, but this time, the sense of unease gnawed at him. The missions were becoming more frequent, more personal. Something felt different about this one. He made his way through the underground halls of the Shadows' headquarters. The cold, metallic walls, a stark contrast to the vibrant city above. The Shadows worked in silence, their operations hidden from the public eye, and the corridors reflected that secrecy. Every corner of this facility was built for efficiency, devoid of any personal touch. As he approached Sarah's office, John took a deep breath, preparing himself for whatever new assignment awaited him. The door slid open, and Sarah was already seated behind her desk, her sharp eyes focused on a tablet in front of her. She looked up as he entered, her expression as unreadable as ever.
"John, take a seat,"
Sarah said, gesturing to the chair in front of her desk. John sat, his posture tense. He could sense the gravity of the situation before she even spoke.
"We've received a new mission,"
Sarah began, her voice calm and professional, though there was a hint of something more beneath the surface.
"This time, it's a solo operation."
John's brow furrowed. Solo missions were rare for someone at his level in the shadows, and the fact that he had been chosen made him uneasy. He nodded, waiting for her to continue.
"We have credible intelligence that someone is planning to assassinate the Minister of Defense,"
Sarah explained.
"The details are still vague, but the threat is real. The Minister has powerful enemies, both within and outside the Dominion, and we've decided to place one of our agents close to him to ensure his safety."
John's mind raced as he processed the information. Protecting the Minister of Defense was no small task, and the political implications of such a mission were enormous. But why him? There were agents far more qualified for this kind of work, agents who specialized in protection and infiltration.
"Sarah,"
John began, his voice careful.
"It's not that I don't want to take on this mission, but there are others who are more qualified than me for something like this. I'm still relatively new. This kind of assignment seems like it would require a veteran."
Sarah leaned back in her chair, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips.
"You're right, John. Normally we would assign a senior agent to a mission of this magnitude. But in this case, we believe you're the best candidate."
John frowned, confused.
"Why me?"
Sarah tapped her tablet, then slid it across the desk toward him.
"Because the Minister is notoriously distrustful of outsiders. He only trusts those within his own inner circle, especially his family."
John's eyes scanned the tablet, the name displayed on the screen making his heart stop for a moment. Lieutenant Kara Voss. His mind reeled. Kara wasn't just attached to the Ministry of Defense. She was directly connected to the Minister. And not just any connection, she was his niece. John looked up at Sarah, the pieces slowly falling into place.
"Kara's Minister of Defense's niece?"
Sarah nodded.
"Exactly. Lieutenant Kara Voss has been working closely with the Minister as part of his personal detail. She's not only trusted by him, but also serves as a key member of his entourage. With you being close to Kara, the Minister won't be suspicious of your presence. He'll see you as part of her trusted circle."
John's stomach twisted. The night out with Kara, the connection they had shared, now felt like a noose tightening around his neck. He hadn't expected his past with her to catch up with him like this. His heart raced as the implications of the mission settled in. He would have to lie to Kara again, deceive her, while pretending to protect the very people she was closest to.
"I understand if this is difficult for you,"
Sarah said, her voice softening slightly.
"But this is why you're the best fit for the mission. The Minister is paranoid, and he won't trust just anyone. But if Kara vouches for you, you'll be able to get close without raising any red flags."
John sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the assignment sinking in. He had wanted to keep his distance from Kara after their last meeting, but now the shadows were pulling him right back into her life. He would have to infiltrate the minister's security team under the guise of protecting him, all while concealing the true nature of his mission. The thought of lying to Kara again, of using her trust to get close to her family, made his stomach churn.
"I get it,"
John finally said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside.
"I'll do it."
Sarah's eyes lingered on him for a moment, as if assessing whether he was truly ready for the task ahead. Then she nodded.
"Good. You'll need to report to the Ministry of Defense tomorrow morning. I've already arranged for your credentials to be added to the minister's security team. Kara will be briefed on your addition."
John stood, his mind still racing with the implications of the mission. As he turned to leave, Sarah's voice stopped him.
"One more thing, John."
He turned back to face her, his expression neutral.
"You're not just protecting the minister,"
Sarah said, her voice colder now.
"You're there to gather intelligence. Whoever is planning this assassination has connections we don't fully understand yet. We need you to find out who they are, and if necessary, eliminate the threat before they strike."
John nodded, the dual nature of the mission clear. He wasn't just a bodyguard. He was an operative tasked with uncovering and neutralizing a threat that could destabilize the Dominion's power structure. And he would have to do it all while maintaining the facade of being a trusted ally in Kara's eyes. The next day came quickly. John arrived at the imposing Ministry of Defense building early in the morning, the city still waking up around him. The towering structure was a symbol of the Dominion's military might, its exterior sleek and intimidating, with armed guards posted at every entrance. John's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the main gate, flashing the identification that Sarah had provided. The guard scanned his credentials, then nodded, stepping aside to let him pass. John took a deep breath and walked through the gates, his mind racing with everything that lay ahead. Inside the building, the atmosphere was cold and efficient. Officers and soldiers moved with purpose, their uniforms immaculate, their expressions serious. John had been in military buildings like this before, but this time felt different. This time, he wasn't just another soldier. He was here as an infiltrator, a shadow operating in the heart of the Dominion's power. He made his way to the briefing room, where Kara was waiting, his steps slow and deliberate. He'd thought about how he would approach her, how he would play his role as the new addition to the security team. But no matter how much he planned, there was no avoiding the tension that was bound to arise. When he entered the room, Kara was already there, standing near a holographic display of the minister's security protocols. She looked up as John walked in, her face lighting up with surprise and confusion.
"John, what are you doing here?"
John forced a smile, keeping his voice light.
"I'm your new addition."
Kara blinked, clearly taken aback.
You're joining the minister's security team?"
John nodded, stepping closer.
"Sarah said they needed someone who could handle the threat and who had connections here. She thought I'd be a good fit."
Kara frowned, her eyes scanning his face as if trying to understand what was happening.
"I didn't know they were adding anyone new. Last-minute decision,"
John said, his voice calm.
"I guess they thought it couldn't hurt to have another set of eyes on things."
Kara studied him for a moment longer, then sighed, shaking her head.
"Well, I trust you, John, but this isn't exactly what I expected."
John's heart tightened at her words. The trust in her voice made the weight of his deception even heavier. But there was no turning back now. He had accepted the mission, and now he had to play his part.
"Don't worry,"
John said, his smile fading as he adopted a more serious tone.
"I've got your back."
Kara nodded, though the uncertainty in her eyes remained.
"I hope so, because things are about to get a lot more dangerous than either of us expected."
John felt a chill run down his spine. He was about to dive deeper into the web of lies, and Kara was now part of the tangled mess. As they prepared for their first day protecting the Minister of Defense, John knew that the hardest part of this mission wasn't going to be neutralizing the threat. It was going to be facing Kara, knowing that every word out of his mouth was a lie. The second day dawned with a quiet stillness, the kind that seemed to blanket the entire city of Nova Lux in a rare moment of peace. John lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind already racing with thoughts of the mission ahead. The previous day had gone by smoothly enough, his first day officially assigned to the Ministry of Defense Security Detail, working alongside Kara. It had been strange, being so close to her again, sharing conversations as if they were just old friends catching up, all while knowing the secret purpose of his mission. But today, the weight of what was coming felt heavier. Just as he was about to get up and prepare for the day, there was a knock on the door. John blinked, glancing toward the clock on the nightstand. It was early, too early for anyone to visit. He sat up and, with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, walked to the door. When he opened it, he found Mark standing in the hallway, grinning from ear to ear, two large suitcases dragging behind him.
"Morning, John boy,"
Mark said, his grin never faltering. Without waiting for an invitation, he pushed past John, dragging the suitcases into the small apartment.
"Thought I'd drop by with some gifts."
John raised an eyebrow, shutting the door behind him.
"Gifts?"
Mark set the suitcases down on the floor and clapped his hands together.
"Oh yeah, you're not going to want to go to your fancy new job at the ministry dressed like a regular civilian, are you? I brought everything you ordered."
John had almost forgotten about the gear he had requested through the Shadow's supply channels. He'd been too focused on the intricacies of the mission to think about the tools he'd need to complete it. Now, with the suitcases in front of him, reality hit him again. This was not just a protective detail mission. This was infiltration, subterfuge, and, if it came down to it, combat. Mark, clearly enjoying John's reaction, dropped onto one of the kitchen chairs and leaned back, kicking his feet up onto the small table.
"Come on, I'll make us some breakfast while you check out your new toys."
John smiled slightly at Mark's casual attitude but didn't argue. He bent down and unlocked the first suitcase, flipping it open with a soft hiss. His eyes widened as he took in the contents. Inside was a sleek, black suit made of a bulletproof material so light and flexible it almost looked like regular fabric. Next to it, folded neatly, was a second suit made of a strange, almost shimmering material. This one was thinner, designed to be worn beneath the black suit for additional protection. It was a combination of high-tech armor and cutting-edge surveillance gear, capable of blocking various forms of attack while also embedding advanced listening and hacking devices. John reached down, running his hand over the material, feeling the lightweight, smooth texture. Mark grinned from the kitchen, where he had started brewing coffee.
"That black suit's top of the line. Lightweight, bulletproof, and it can absorb some energy-based attacks. But that other one, that's your ace in the hole. You wear it under the main suit, and it's got enough tech in it to make you a walking surveillance system. Listening devices, hacking capabilities, you name it. It can even scramble most detection systems."
John nodded, impressed. The Shadows spared no expense when it came to outfitting their operatives.
"And if that wasn't enough,"
Mark continued, his tone smug,
"wait till you see the weapons."
John moved to the second suitcase, unlocking it with a soft click and lifting the lid. His breath caught at the sight of the arsenal inside. Resting neatly within the padded compartments were two plasma swords, their sleek hilts gleaming faintly under the light. These weren't ordinary weapons. Plasma blades were rare and incredibly dangerous, capable of cutting through most materials with ease. John lifted one of the swords, testing the weight. It was perfectly balanced, its design streamlined for quick strikes. There were magnetic clamps on the hilts, designed to attach the swords to his back under the suit, concealed, but ready for use at a moment's notice. Next to the swords were two plasma pistols, their design compact but powerful. John knew from the specs that these could penetrate most conventional armor and shields, making them formidable in close-quarters combat. There was also a hunting knife, its blade crafted from a nearly indestructible alloy, honed to a razor edge. But what caught John's attention the most was the plasma automaton. a lightweight, semi-automatic rifle designed for both close-range and medium-range combat. The weapon was sleek, with a matte black finish and built for rapid deployment. It was far more advanced than anything he had ever used before. John stared at the weapons for a moment, the gravity of the mission settling in once again. This wasn't just about protecting the Minister of Defense from an assassination attempt. This was about infiltration, espionage, and, if necessary, combat. He had to be prepared for anything. Mark, now holding 2 plates of scrambled eggs and toast, came over and set one down in front of John.
"Breakfast is served. You're gonna need the energy, my friend."
John chuckled, shaking his head at Mark's ability to keep things light, even in the midst of such serious work. He joined Mark at the kitchen table, the two of them eating in silence for a few moments.
"So,"
Mark said between bites,
"you ready for this? Solo mission and all?"
John paused, setting his fork down.
"As ready as I'll ever be."
Mark nodded, his playful expression softening slightly.
"You've got this, John. You're good at this, even if you don't think so yet. Just remember, you're not just a bodyguard. You're there to uncover whoever's behind the plot. Stay sharp, trust your instincts, and you'll be fine."
John met Mark's gaze, appreciating the confidence his friend had in him. He hadn't known Mark for long, but the guy had a way of cutting through the tension and reminding John of his capabilities. After they finished breakfast, Mark stood, grabbing his jacket and giving John a quick clap on the back.
"All right, I've got to head back to HQ. Got my own mission to prepare for. You stay safe out there and don't forget, if you need backup, we're never too far away."
John nodded, watching as Mark headed for the door.
"Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it."
Mark grinned over his shoulder.
"Anytime, John boy. Go knock 'em dead."
And with that, he was gone, leaving John alone in the quiet apartment. For a moment, John just stood there, staring at the suitcases and the weapons laid out before him, the tools of his trade. The mission ahead would test him, not just physically, but mentally. He would be working alongside Kara, lying to her, deceiving her. And all the while, he would be hunting down whoever wanted to kill the Minister of Defense. John shook his head, pushing those thoughts aside. He didn't have time for doubt. This was the job. He moved to the bedroom and began preparing for the day. He slipped into the strange, shimmering material of the undersuit first, feeling the cool, smooth fabric against his skin. It clung to him like a second skin, lightweight but durable. Once the undersuit was in place, he pulled on the black suit, its sleek design fitting perfectly over the protective layer. John adjusted the magnetic clamps on his back and attached the 2 plasma swords, ensuring they were concealed but easily accessible. The plasma pistols went into hidden holsters under his jacket, while the hunting knife was sheathed at his side. He held the plasma automaton for a moment, feeling the power of the weapon in his hands, before deciding to keep it stored for now, too conspicuous to bring on this part of the mission. Finally, he stood in front of the mirror, fully equipped. The suit looked like a simple, elegant black outfit, but beneath the surface, it was a fortress of protection, surveillance, and weaponry. John took a deep breath, steadying himself. He was ready. Without another word, he left the apartment and made his way toward the Ministry of Defense. The sun was just beginning to rise over the city, casting long shadows across the streets as he walked. The familiar noise of Nova Lux surrounded him, but today it felt different. Today, he wasn't just part of the crowd. Today, he was a shadow.